Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Megaman-B Challenger from the Future. Cutscene time.
Tell me who he is now, Proto-Man.
Megaman-Shadow is a reflection of you. He gains power as you do.
What? You're not making sense.
You can beat this Megaman. But first you must reach him. You must witness his true power. Does that cutscene make no sense? Yes. Is it because the dialogue's probably tuned for Mega Man? Yes. For now, it's time for the rare double Robot Master. It's time for the Clockmen. Not many times they do a two-part Robot Master or boss in the series to begin with. Like, I can immediately think there's the boss against a certain duo in 02. And then there's Gemini Spark in the Star Force games, and that's all that immediately comes to mind besides Gemini Man himself. And even then, one of those is more so meant to be a hologram, if memory serves at least. Kinda surprised how few times they use this kind of concept now that I think about it. I guess Impact Man sort of in 11, because that's made up of 3 different robots, but that's only fought as one by and large. It's just how the 3 arrange themselves that changes things up. Now, despite the fact that in order to access Clockmen's stage, you need to beat the first 4 Robot Masters, it's not really that much harder of a stage. And ultimately, you should look at this as the first Fortress stage, because once you reach Clockmen, there's only 3 stages left in the game, including theirs. Challenger from the Future is not a very long game, and believe it or not, it's going to be even shorter when we go through it as Mega Man, because of how much more power his Mega Buster has behind it. On top of me just being more used to the game at that point. It is interesting that the older I get, the more I realize, yeah, base is definitely better for levels for the most part in these games, but Mega Man just destroys bosses for the most part so much more quickly, except for King Tank and King Plane. In fact, the entirety of King 2 is like the real big standout for that. Now, something I should note about the game, going back to it, is the weapons themselves. They're basically all useful against normal enemies and bosses, but there's a distinct reason for that. For one thing with bosses, it's the lack of invincibility frames, like I said before. But the thing is, by and large, a weapon will never do less damage to a specific type of enemy or boss fight. It can do more in some cases, like the case of Base Cyclone, but by and large, weapons do fixed damage. So like Base Cyclone, I think, does a fixed 5 damage to everything even before weaknesses, which is why some weapons just seem so absurdly powerful in this game. It's because they just do the same damage to everything. And on one hand, hey, that's good to have a Mega Man game where all the weapons are useful. Sometimes those are kind of hard to come by in some series. I'd say on average, every single sub-series, counting things like Mega Man World as their own sub-series and all that, has only maybe 1 or 2 games where they're always all good. Even like Mega Man and Base, for instance, there's only like 2 or 3 that I'd say are really good for just mass usage. I think the games with overall super useful abilities are like Mega Man 2, but that's mostly for Metal Blades. Mega Man 6 has a lot of good ones. 7 honestly has a lot of good ones. 9s are almost all universally great. And even in the X series, I'm like, what's a game where they're almost all useful, barring getting just other items? Oh, also, this Spike Crusher segment might look super stressful, but it's really not. As long as you stand exactly at the level we're at now or below, the spikes will never actually touch you. Compare this to, say, Metal Shark Player from X6 or Dustman's Stage in 4 even. And yeah, this is a lot safer feeling. What isn't a safe feeling is this tank mini-boss. This thing does a lot of damage and is surprisingly quick for something that's as round-looking as it is, and its attacks are somewhat random. It jumps a far jump from one side to the other at first, but then it rains down rocks from the ceiling in somewhat random positions, and then it does small hops back to the opposite side. It took forever for me to internalize that's what its attack pattern is. Notably, every time it lands after the first jump as well, it also makes 1 rock rain down. I used Base Cyclone on that, mostly just because, again, absurdly good weapon. So a thought I had between parts that kind of feels apt about this game is, if you squint your eyes, a lot of these stage mechanics feel like they'd be in mainline Mega Man, yeah, but the way this game's levels are designed and how it handles, it feels like it's made by people who only ever watched a Mega Man game be played and didn't actually touch it themselves, if that makes sense. Like, it's got a lot of the visuals down, even with some of the awkward-looking sprites, but just some of the way it all handles is just off. And now we reach the Clockmen stage gimmick, gravity. You can just barely see below base's 1 foot. There's an arrow right now pointing upwards. When you walk over those, your gravity gets released. Some point downwards and send you to the floor, some point upwards and point to the ceiling. Just navigate those alongside the spikes, pretty much. There's not too many cases here where they try to place traps, too, where there's, like, a gravity switcher immediately over a bed of spikes or something like that. Usually it plays it pretty straight. The thing I'm having trouble remembering at the moment, though, and I'll try to remember this when we're in this stage as Mega Man, is when the gravity's reversed, if your up and down are reversed, so like sliding in this case would be up in the jump button instead of down and jump. I want to say it's still down and jump, but don't quote me on that. What I do want to be quoted on is something that I actually want to remedy about, something I brought up last part. Last time I went over what all the shop has for both characters and just base in specific. We'll talk about Mega Man specific stuff when we get to him. But something I want to note about the shop, the exit item is a lot worse than it seems, which is probably why it's so inexpensive. In most Mega Man games, when you buy the exit unit from a shop or find it in a stage, you have it forever. In this game, it's one and done per purchase, so if you buy it, you can only use it once and then you have to buy it again. Which is dumb. It's the only game I can think of that has the exit unit that works like that. Disgusting. Also, fill up base Cyclone because it's just going to be the best weapon to use against the boss fight. Again, in fact, even more so in this case, potentially. Some of the jumps in this stage can be a little tough for Mega Man, more so than base, but they put these springs here, and that's part of what makes them kind of rough. Because sometimes the ceilings are a little too high. Like that last one in particular, that ceiling is just low enough that it can completely bonk you out of your jump momentum and make the horizontal distance as Mega Man rough. For now, though, it's time for the Clockmen. Starting off, the first two attacks this thing does are pretty much invincible. The second Clockman will spawn out of the first, and then they'll kick towards the interior of the stage, get up to the top of the sky, and fire shots down. They're invincible until they start rising up, I believe. Then they try to arrange a clock, which will do things when it gets assembled, but I'm not sure what, because I've always killed before it gets to go off. You don't need to take out both Clockmen's HP, just take out one and they both die kind of deal. It's not like a certain boss fight in 0-2 even, where you need to take out equal amounts of HP on both of them. But for beating them, we get a very good ability, the Time Bomb. It's Flash Stopper from Mega Man 2, only you're completely invincible, can walk through enemies and projectiles while it's active. It's ridiculous. Unfortunately, you only have it for about 2 stages. Speaking of which, time for our next stage against our final sort of normal Robot Master.
Get out of my way. I want to beat down on Megaman-Shadow.
So arrogant. You won't live long enough to face him. I am Megaman-Shadow's first lieutenant, Compassman. His base is ahead. Just try to get through me now. Our final standard Robot Master, and honestly one that, like, the only design I think is super strong out of the set, Compassman. This stage isn't a lot to write home about, honestly. Although I do like this version of, I think it's Pirate Man's theme? Some of the songs in this just don't convert well, but some of them honestly do. It's kind of weird. It's even kind of funny. I was looking on Moby Games trying to figure out, like, a lot of the people who worked on this to see what else they worked on. By and large, if they didn't only work on this game, they only usually worked on one other notable game, and that is the Ghosts and Goblins game on the WonderSwan. Some of them worked on some other stuff, like there's a couple that worked on some of the Digimon games on the WonderSwan, WonderSwan Color, and Game Boy Advance, like Battle Spirit. Arguably, looking through this, one of the most notable people here is Atsushi Kuroka, who is a lot of the, like, manager, producer level stuff on a lot of Platinum Games stuff from, like, Wonderful 101 on? Otherwise, it's like Digimon Battle Spirits. Like, I think one of the people in the graphics team was a test player for the first Wario Land on Game Boy. And it just makes me wonder if either they realized this wasn't for them, or they got burned out of the industry because of the crunch stuff that was still already a thing even back as late as early as 1999, which has only gotten worse since in a lot of regards. Although we got another mini-boss here against another little tank. This one's not too bad. It starts off being charged by the platform above it and then moves across the way and fires a shot. But when it's making a shot, the charging platform above it stays above you and will eventually do one of a couple of different attacks. Either a spike ball that goes directly into you and then back, a cannon that will fire an arc of projectiles very slowly, and I think that's it. There might be one more attack, I can't remember. It also has a little too much health again. If you can get some good bolt drops, get that upgrade for Base's Buster. I don't. I'm not even sure what the best stage to grind for bolts in this game is, because I can't think of any offhand that have like a notable enemy type like the ones from Airman stage in Mega Man 2 or Cloud Man 7, where it's like a bird that drops an egg that hatches more birds. Usually enemies in this are very one and done. And I don't think they have the same usual respawn that Mega Man tends to have, because if you can shoot them from off screen, they probably don't actively respawn from memory. I also seldom revisit stages in this game because it's not a game I really like playing. Also, one thing you should watch out for with these like mini versions of that one mini boss, their lasers look small, but they have a much larger hitbox than you think, on top of your character's sprite being larger than it might initially feel like. So if it looks like it'll just sneak over your head, no, it'll still hit you. Be careful with that. This part of the stage kind of neat, though. You actually have some different routes you can take with Mega Man or Base, depending on how you get through it. And Base gets to really shortcut through this segment overall. Also, I don't like that the stage music gets interrupted whenever you enter the menu. It's just kind of weird. And here's me using Time Bomb for the only time in the game. I think I do this as both characters. It just allows you to just sprint through this section real nice and quick, like, without much of a fear of taking damage. There's a reason Time Stoppers still usually let you be hit by things, because otherwise it's just invincibility, basically. Either way, time for Compassman. Compassman can be tricky, but not for the reason you might initially think. For one thing, after he fires his initial shot, he walks across the stage split in half like this, but you can only damage the very top of the bottom half. The top half and bottom half otherwise is completely invincible. As he splits himself in half, the bottom half's gonna walk back and forth several times across the stage, while the top half does some attacks, be it ramming into you or shooting some projectiles. Eventually they combine on the same side that they split apart in, and he floats awkwardly to the opposite side of the screen to do this attack pattern, but in reverse. It's not a hard fight, it's just hard to literally hit him, because of how easy it is to bonk shots off of the compass ring around him. Neat boss design, kind of a cool idea even, because you don't see many Mega Man bosses that do this kind of thing, period. It's really just him and Swordman from 8 overall. But it's just kind of annoying to fight, more so than anything. Bring your best, use whatever special weapons you got, really. If you run out of ammo, just swap to something else. And it should die pretty quickly. Flame Mixer's not too terrible for this, because you can just stand in its hitbox and do damage. But I think the thing with Flame Mixer, I forgot to mention, the fire is the only thing that actively damages during this attack. It's not like some shields where if it just collides with it, when you have an active period, it will protect you. It needs to actually touch the fire. Almost got it. There we go. And Compassman's a little unique in that he's, I think, the only boss in the game that doesn't give you a special weapon, barring, of course, the final boss. But with that, I'm gonna need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 4, we go finish off the base campaign. See you guys then.